Payload is divided into 2 rounds. You will be assigned attacker or defender role randomly before you have even chosen your talent. There are 2 ways to know if you are the attacker or defender. You are the defender if when this timer reaches 40, you automatically mount or the spawn doors open. If you are the attacker, you will not mount and the spawn doors will be locked. You will only mount as a defender automatically if it reaches 3. You are given a total of 1000 credits whenever a round begins. When round 2 begins, you will be given 1000 credits and all previously bought items will be taken from you. So you will start with no item and your ultimate charge will also be reverted to 0%. You can gain credits as you normally would in Siege. When a round begins, the payload will spawn right outside the doors of the attacker's spawn room. By this time the defenders should be in position to prevent the payload from being pushed. The push mechanics are the same as Siege. How you win or lose. There is no overtime in this mode. The goal of this mode is to push the payload as fast or as far as possible. In other words, your team wins if after round 2, your team pushed the payload the fastest or the farthest. There are 2 factors that determine whether you lose or win a match in Payload. They are the timer and percent scores. The percent score goes up the more your team pushes the payload. The timer will start counting down from 7 minutes the moment that the attackers leave the spawn room. I will use 4 scenarios to explain the win or lose conditions. Scenario 1. Your team is pushing the payload in round 1, attackers. Your team is able to push the payload all the way, 100%, when the timer was at 2 minutes 40 seconds. In round 2, the timer will start counting down from 4 minutes 20 seconds. To win the match, your team must prevent the payload from being pushed to 100% for 4 minutes 20 seconds. If the enemies are able to push the payload to 100% before the timer reaches 0 seconds, you automatically lose. Scenario 2. Your team is pushing the payload. Your team was only able to push the payload to 69% in the whole 7 minutes of round 1. The timer will start counting down from 7 minutes because the attackers in round 1 were not able to push the payload to 100%. To win the match, your team must prevent the payload from being pushed past 69% for the whole 7 minutes of round 2. The moment that the enemies push it to 70%, you automatically lose the game. Scenario 3. Your team is defending against the payload. Your team was able to prevent the payload from being pushed 70% for the whole 7 minutes of round 1. In round 2, the timer will start from 7 minutes because the payload was not pushed to 100% in round 1. To win the match, your team must push the payload to 71% before the timer reaches 0 seconds in round 2. The moment that 7 minutes has elapsed but your team was not able to push it to 71%, you automatically lose. Scenario 4. Your team is defending against the payload. Your team was not able to prevent the payload from being pushed 100%. The payload was pushed to 100% when the timer was at 2 minutes 30 seconds in round 1. In round 2, the timer will start counting down from 4 minutes 30 seconds because the payload was pushed to 100% in that time in round 1. To win the match, your team must push the payload to 100% before the timer reaches 2 minutes 30 seconds. The moment that the timer reaches 0 seconds and your team was not able to push the payload to 100%, you automatically lose. Stealth bushes. There are bushes on 2 of the maps that when you step into them you become invisible to enemies.